Egyptian temples, gods, and priests is chapter 5, and we're going to continue it from The Dwellers on the Nile, The Life History, Religion, and Literature of the Ancient Egyptians by E.A. Wallis Budge. So this is 2 books down, 47 to go. No, not 47 to go. Yeah, 47 to go. Well, after this is finished. Ptah, the great entity of Memphis, was thought of as a deified man. He was a master handicraftsman and was said to have assisted Khpre in the creation of the material world. He often appears in the form of a mummy, holding the bull penis staff, of course. He was the first member of the Triad of Memphis, Ptah, Sekhmet, Nefer-Temu. Ptah, Seker, a form of the sun entity of night, an entity of death. Ptah, Seker, Urius, the triune entity of the Egyptian resurrection, a triad of the entities of death and the district of Memphis. And Urius is, of course, a variety of Osiris. Ptah, Taya, Timun, the creator of the matter of which the world was formed, getting rumbly and the tumbly. Yim Hatuptup, the Imhotep of the Greeks, a native of Memphis, was deified. He was a great architect and very wise and learned man. He and Hertetef, a son of King Khufu, were held to be the most learned men in Egypt. Her, the sky entity and sun entity, as later he appears with the solar disk on his head, of course, with something to hold it, sort of a display little bit. In the dynastic period, Horus is often called the son of Isis. Saya Yust. And Yust is Isis, and Sa or Sag is sun. Hre, Horus the Elder, one of the oldest entities of Egypt. He's personified the face of the sky, the sun being his bright, kind of like Lucifer and this 9 demonic gatekeepers idea that's going around right now. And the moon as his left eye, sort of a lucifuge. Well, that's the corollary. Obviously, they don't take it so dark. It's to Hrep Churd. Hrep Churd. Yeah. Hrep Churd is the Horus the child. Oh, I didn't say. Hrep Churd. Harpocrats. Her Kuteper. Okay. The Harakthes of the Greeks, the sun entity of the 2 horizons. Her Kate. The Harmakis of the Greeks, a form of the sun entity. Hre Kante Chate. Horus in the womb, the unborn Horus, or sun entity. Hre Sa Yust. Horus, son of Isis, an entity who is often confused with Herer, Horus the Elder, or Horus the Aged. And her, are, hut, tipper, her, ret, saw. The Hathor of the Greeks, thought to be a goddess of love, beauty, and fertility. A special kind of cow was sacred to her. Shu, an emanation of Tamu, or Kthpre. He is represented as the space between the earth and the sky, and separated the sky entity Nut from the embrace of the earth entity Geb. He was thought to be a god of light, heat, air, and dryness. He's supported by the horizon and solar disk on his shoulders. Tfnut, sister and wife of Shu. He represented rain, dew, and damp heat that produces generation and moisture generally. Geb? I think that's Pob. The son of Shu and Tfnut, was an early form of the earth entity. Nut, an older form of Nut. Saw, sister and wife of Pob, was the great sky entity. This is Geb, but I think that's a paw. Yeah, that's... Yasir are... Urius are Yasir, getting rumbly and tumbly. Don't mean to disturb with the sound of my rumbling stomach, if that's... Osiris, thought to be god of the dead. The principal states of his cult were Abydos and Basiris. Yust, Isis, the sister and wife of Osiris and mother of Horus, whom she brought forth in the lotus swamps of the delta. Sut, or Sutish. I did a political one about that, about Osiris, about... I'm doing a whole series of things as things come up. So, there's more detail about some of these entities. The brother and murderer of Osiris, and the great perpetual adversary of Har, and all the solar entities. He was the personification of evil, and an entity of calamities of every kind, and of the desert waste, and of destruction generally. He was the incarnate of some African animal, either the zebra or okape. Nabjit. I think it's Nabjit. Nabjit. The TJ thing. Nephthys, the sister and wife of Set and mother of Anpu. Yinpu, Anubis, the physician who embodied the body of Osiris and was guardian of all mummies. Sut, Ekabet, the Greek Isle Ithia, the oldest mother entity of Upper Egypt. She was the great protectress of pregnant women. Her sacred bird was a vulture. And we have Isis suckling her son Horus among the lotus plants. She wears the vulture headdress with the horns and disk of the moon At the right is Yemen-Ra, who is holding life to her nostrils, and on the left, Dahota, the twice great of Kemenu, the great entity who's represented to her this magic fluid of life. And kind of reminds you of an ox, but it's not, because you have this thing here and you have so the ox sign and the sacred knot. Watchit, one of the oldest mother entities of Lower Egypt. The seat of the cult was Per Watchit Buto in the delta, and her emblem was a cobra. Nut, the great, thought to be a great mother goddess of the city of Sais in the delta. Though she existed in 4 forms or aspects, she was called one. She was self-begotten and self-produced, and whilst a virgin, gave birth to the sun entity. And, you know, this even goes back before the Cyrus thing, but, which 2800 BCE, and, you know, but other parts of the world actually had it before, is the references that we're referring to. Bast, mother entity, the city of Bubastis in the eastern delta, whose sacred animal was the cat. Okay, I thought they were going to, for a second, I thought that was going to be excluded. Ta-wrt, R. Ta-wrt. Oh, well, you see a upstanding like crocodile, a hippopotamus, with his hands on the knot, wearing this double fold of a crown thing, or you see with the cobra. Remember, snakes are often associated as symbols of these invisible beings, these fire beings, so they're usually, if you're talking male or female powers, you're talking about the jinn. But Thueris of the Greeks was one of the oldest so-called mother goddesses of Egypt. Her sacred animal was the hippopotamus. Hopit, one of the oldest entities considered to be a mother goddess of Egypt, and was of fertility and rebirth. The little green tree frog was her symbol in Nubia and the northern Sudan. It has a line over it, just like when you have the line. So I'm going to follow that form unless I see otherwise. And the ordinary frog in Egypt. And isn't this the symbol of 100,000 too? Yemen, the hidden, a local entity of Thebes, whose cult is as old as dynastic civilization in Egypt. He represented the hidden powers of generation and growth in the unborn child. His symbol seems to have been the umbilicus. If this be so, his cult may be of Sudani origin. Under the 12th dynasty, he became the chief entity of Thebes, and after an expulsion of the Hyksos, which he believed to be due to his power and favor, the attributes of Ra, the sun entity of Heliopolis, was merged with his, and he was called Yimnan Ra Rai, the king of the entities. Sutan Drew, king of the gods. And, you know, I was raised LDS, and those symbols and the pearl of great price, you know, they defined, Joseph Smith defined a meaning, and Heliopolis and Ben, and, you know, there's some interesting Egyptian mythology being mentioned there, but they interpreted it in a Christian way. Ra, the sun entity of Heliopolis, whose spirit was believed to dwell in the Ben, you know, i.e. a stone that had the form of a square pointed stone set on a truncated pyramid. He usurped the attributes of the older solar entities of Egypt, and his priests not only made him the head of the company of the entities, but forced their nominees onto the throne of Egypt and made them adopt a name as the sons of Ra. He represented the noonday sun, i.e. the sun is full strength. So Ra, the sun entity of Heliopolis, now, rather than just the servants per se. Well, forces of nature can go through cycles, and the angels over such can have shifts, but certainly the jinn, one leads a charge to be considered a top god, and another leads a charge here and there, and you see a lot of polytheism where some of these things come from, don't you? Hape, the Nile entity, has the form of a man with the breast of a woman. Merit, thought to be a goddess of inundation. An ancient entity, one of the names of Egypt was Ta-Ra, land of inundation. Yin, Yin-Her, Yin-Put, maybe. An ancient entity of these, whose attributes were usurped by Osiris. Osiris and Ra are particularly labored as usurper entities. You'd find a lot of this usurper entity stuff in a lot of Satanist, a lot of Gnostic, some other groups that were marginalized or basically appeared on the margins to address something they didn't see the main groups putting forward. Manu, an entity of generation and fertility, usually represented in the form of an ithiphallic man. Yafu Rare. The body, the sun entity of the night. Oh, I forget what's that paper clip look? Not a paper clip, but what's that? Yimst. I'm trying to think. Yamast. There's another sound with it. No, it's not Ymir. Anyways, one of the 4 entities of Horus who protect the Viscera of the dead. The other 3 were Hop, Kabah, Snoof, and Dwa Mutaf. The first had a head of a man, the second that of an ape, and the third of that of a hawk, and the fourth that of a jackal. And, 2 of the 4 facsimiles in the Pearl Great Price that I grew up with address this. And my stomach rumbled pretty much to the tune of this, didn't it? Which means it needs food soon. And I probably need to sit up straight, but I'm getting out of view. Yimt, a dog-headed entity of the dead. His symbol was a pied, headless bull skin attached to a rod. You know, you got oh yeah, one would probably never guess just by looking at this. It looks like a snake on some sort of mop bucket or something. Yni, a form of the moon entity. His wife was Ynit. Satat Sa and Xunmu formed the Great Triad of Elephantine and the First Cataract. The two female entities, were probably of Sudani origin. You know, the ancient Egyptians actually say their culture kind of stemmed to the southwest, so take them at their word. Yisden, Yisdes, the companion of Thoth. Ba, are Beb, firstborn of Osiris. Hop, the Apis bull. Wurr, the Menevis bull. Bacha, the Bacchus bull. Who, and Xia represented taste and touch, respectively. They appear in the Judgment Hall of Osiris. Uwust Sut Sa, an ancient, thought to be an ancient goddess of Heliopolis. Uwust Ost Sa. Okay, yeah. Xun Su, the moon entity, and Yiminra and Mut formed the Great Triad of Thebes. Another important form of Hin was Xun Su Nthur Hatuptup Manahat Sa, a line entity. The Sa, sometimes not pronounced, but definitely the egg does have the sound Sa. So, Mun Nathu, the war entity of Hermonthis and Thebes. Meh Havrut, a sky entity who took the form of a cow, considered as a goddess. Mervrest Grtsa, a Theban entity who's represented in the form of a woman-headed serpent. The name means lover of silence. I remember interpreting somebody's dream once, and I'm like, woman? You're the snake, the snake in your dream is you. You know, men dream of themselves as snakes too. There was a guy in Oregon who identified as a snake. Getting plastic surgery and a bunch of tattoos does not make you a snake, but you know, we're leaning that way in society that you're whatever animal or gender that you just decide you are. And the Egyptian forms here, we can think of these things as all one, can't you? We can think of them as all one, and without the personifications. I mean, when we're talking about God, divinity, these are just metaphors that we refer to the God with. But we're referring, the interaction of the material world, which is created, and things about our psychology. So we can get beyond these names and forms said to something transcendental. But most people apparently can't get that simple point. Oh, there's an Asperger's entity? Okay, well, I may get to that. I may not get that until next program. Mus suxt saw, an entity of the birth chamber. Mut, the mother entity of Thepis, wife of Yumin Ra. Now, if some languages that exist, can kind of blur these things together, perhaps the ancient Egyptians didn't have the extra sounds with their words either. And that was just something that happened later with the Arabs and the Hebrews and other people that encountered their culture, and tried to pass on some of their information, which naturally would have passed on some of the forms of the words, but not quite. So we have Kensu, the moon entity, on the left, and Bes, the Sudanese entity wearing plumes and a tail, the entity of mirth and jollity, and as an entity of music and plays a harp, and also appears in the form of a jovial soldier, and that would be as my next Egyptian political. Nabur Chichur, Lord to the Outmost Limit, a title of Osiris and other entities. Some had a whole litany of 75 names or 72 names or various 14 qualities, and then it wasn't per se that it was usurped. It's like, oh, well, this is the thing about this. So whichever our favorite name of God is going to be our favorite supposed deity, Nefer Fert Timum. Okay, and the son of Ptah and Sekhmet of Memphis. Don't know how this squeaked in my cheek, but I guess I flicked my tongue wrong, but that's not part of it. Nahabka, a benevolent serpent entity considered to be a goddess. Pukst, a local cat entity, also given the female. Rennet Sa, thought to be a goddess of birth and the harvest. Sipt, Sothis, I don't remember, is it Sipt or Sipt? Sothis, thought to be goddess of the dog star. And Sixt, Metsa, the wife of Ptah and Memphis. Sikar, an entity of death and the underworld of Memphis. Sarkdasa, thought to be a scorpion goddess. Sashtsa, thought to be a goddess of writing and literature, an associate of Thoth. Shai, thought to be a god of luck or destiny. Tai, Su Nu, are Taya, Susu, Nun, Tatanen, Taya, Tanan, a cosmic entity. Oop, Uatu, a wolf entity, an associate of Yinpu, and we see this given a plural, so, but plural does not mean plural in beings, right? Wunen, Nefer, that. One, Nun, Furfur. The hair entity, sometimes identified with Osiris. Apophis was the perpetual archenemy of all the solar entities. He appeared in the form of a crocodile. Urius, Hap, Serapis, was identified as the deified Apis bull. It was identified by the Greeks with their entity Hades, and both Egyptians and Greeks regarded him as the entity of death and worshipped him as such. The following were of Sudani origin: Ahu, Bas, Dadwinin, Bridl. The following were of Syrian and Hittite origin: Muriel, okay. Anthitsa, thought to be a goddess of conception and a daughter of Set, and Anchriethe, thought to be a goddess mentioned with Sutek, Aentjrythy would be a way to transliterate that. Astye, Rjiet, Sa, Astorath, mistress of horses and lady of the chariot. We have Hanut, Sama,